Hey, how you doing? How you doing, Bob?
Good morning. Okay, I guess I'm awake, vertical, so those are two good things.
There you go. I was trying to talk. It didn't seem to work there for a second. It was like, okay. Hey, Richard, Naomi, Lady, and John. Okay.
Hey, how you doing, Charles?
Happy Monday, everybody.
Happy
Happy
Monday.
Monday to you too.
Everybody doing okay?
Yes.
Not too bad.
Not too bad, huh? Okay. Well, all right. It's Monday morning, and I guess, people should be here. So we're going to get started. So,
Go ahead and breakfast.
did anybody do anything fun over the weekend? Anybody make any art, push any paint around, try anything new?
I did.
You did?
Yep, and I sent something to you.
Okay, who is this? Is this?
Lady, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, all right.
Still eating breakfast, that's why I don't have my face on the screen.
I see. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we've got to, well, we don't have to eat, but it's a good idea every once in a while.
I sent something to you Sunday.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm downloading stuff. I was downloading some stuff this morning. I'm pretty sure, I got an email from you.
Yes,
And
sir.
a couple of other people like Naomi, and I think John sent me one or two things. Anyhow, we'll look at those this afternoon. But I've got a couple of artists I've got an artist to share with you. One of my very favorite all-time artists who I actually have gotten to know over the years, by running into him from time to time, and great guy. In fact, one of my very good friends here in Atlanta, she was looking for someone to study with and basically to be her mentor because she really wanted to learn how to paint portraits. And so I gave her a couple of names, and this guy's name was at the top of the list. And she actually contacted him, talked to him, and he agreed to actually work with her for about 4 years. And so she studied with him. Actually, she moved to New York, which is where he lives, and studied with him. And his name is Bert Silverman. Okay. Has anybody ever heard of him?
I think I have, but I can't remember in the context. The name kind of sounds familiar.
Okay. Well, along with Richard Schmid, he's probably one of those iconic American artists right now. Him, Harvey Weinstein, Daniel Green. And I think Daniel Green just passed away a month or two ago, unfortunately. But, all those guys are getting up there in that age now where, they're not going to be around a lot longer. But, just absolutely, we have some of probably the very best American artists alive right now, or, just recently. The work that they're doing is phenomenal. Anyhow, I'm going to share Bert with you right now, and then we're going to look at a period of time called the Arts and Crafts Movement. And I talk about it a lot because it's really one of my very favorites. And I'm going to talk a lot about the Arts and Crafts Movement in regards to painters. Okay. So we're going to, I'm going to share Bert first, and then we'll go into the Arts and Crafts Movement and what that was all about, and what it is, when you're looking at arts and crafts paintings that you might want to pay attention to, right? All right, so I'm going to blow that up and get this big enough where you can see it. Okay. All right. So Bert Silverman, he's primarily a portrait artist. He works in both watercolors and in oils. And, just a fantastic artist all around. he relates everything to his ability to draw well, right? And from the background that he was coming from, Bert was a very well-known illustrator for many, many years. And then as he got older and retired, he went into fine art and started doing more and more portraits. And that seems to be sort of a natural, I think, transition for a lot of people who worked as illustrators to go into portraiture. You know, unlike a lot of fine artists who go to school and study fine art and come out with a fine art degree, and they're wanting to be very creative and all that and just kind of do their own thing. Illustrators come from the world where, they were always working with the premise that they were doing a job. They were fulfilling a specific need to create a piece of artwork, that somebody desired or wanted. Okay. And so they're very used to working in the kind of environment where you have an end client. And a lot of fine artists are not, used to that, and they don't have that kind of temperament. So I think a lot of illustrators, just by the nature of what they do, sort of transition, out of doing commercial work into doing portraiture. And it just seems to be a natural fit, because again, they're working with those clients pretty much so the same way that they would with a publisher or an agency. And, Bert made that transition. He's basically been doing fine art now for really the last 30 years, I'd say. And, so he doesn't really do commercial work anymore. He's basically focused on portraits and on teaching. And this is one of his, I would say that this is probably, in looking at it, a watercolor. Okay. And what I want you to notice is, his compositions are very simple. He kind of, he doesn't really push the composition a lot because he's doing portraiture. Most of his subjects are kind of right there, in the middle of the canvas. He doesn't often give you a lot of background or context. He's focused on the figure itself. But with what he does with it is beautiful, because he really understands value. And if you look at the contrast in this painting, look at the strong darks, here in the shadow of the fold of the shirt. And, we've talked about, in the drawing class and also, in painting various things, how he gives you just enough, on that shirt to tell you, more or less what the material is made of and how it wraps around the form of this, young woman. And you see this arm doesn't feel flat. It feels round. It feels like it's moving around the figure. So does, just the body of the shirt, and that continues all the way across your figure. So he's got a great way of really interpreting the form. And, nice, really, really nice, strong piece. If you look at the modeling, of the face itself, fairly simple, hasn't gotten real picky about the detail. He's giving you just enough, without really overworking it.
I love the way he does the folds, like in the polo, like in the shirt up underneath the jean jacket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Beautiful folds.
Right. Yeah. And you'll notice that none of them are repetitive.
Right.
Right.
What size are these?
Oh, hard to say. I would say, on average, he's probably working, about 20 by 30. He doesn't paint real small. He generally tends to be kind of medium size. And again, that's kind of a carryover or function of doing illustration. A lot of illustrators work fairly large pieces because they know in the end they're going to be reproduced small and it's going to tighten them up. And that's another key reason that, illustrators in particular really focus on value, because the values are really essential and really have to work right, if you know that piece is going to be reduced in size. So you really got to get those things right. Again, now this is an oil, and it's kind of a more sketchy approach. You can actually see some of the sketch or the line drawing in this, and Bert usually will work either with a brush and draw in things with a brush, and or if he's using like a pencil, then he'll use like a really dark compressed charcoal pencil that will really show up, and then he'll fix it down, and then he'll start working layers of transparent oil over that. But what I want you to notice is, as you're looking at her face, in particular, look at the shadows, okay? And if you start looking into these shadows, do you see how the background color, this color out here, you see, he's let that come through. See, he didn't go back in and repaint those shadows. He may have glazed this down a little bit darker, but in a lot of cases, as you get into those like deeper shadow areas and things like that, it's really the background, that he laid in, that initial tone. And he didn't go back in and modify that a lot. He really kind of worked in the mid-tones and the light, bringing the form of the face and things out, and then gave you just enough, of what she was wearing, to convince you, more or less she was sitting there. This is a little, a lot more finished, quote unquote, a more formal looking book. Okay. And as you look at this, again, look at how he's handled like the skin tones. See how these get almost kind of purple? He's got a lot of cooler temperatures, in the arms, and down, through the chest. And really, as you move upward, the temperature begins to get much warmer up around the face. And when you start thinking about how this painting was actually put together and composed, one of the things that really make it work really nicely is how cool the temperature of the background is, and how that relates to the flesh tones, which are just slightly warmer, right? Until you get up to, the face, which is really the warmest area in the painting, temperature-wise. And that really draws your eye, right up to this area because of the contrast in both temperature and in value. Okay? Anybody got any questions about that?
Her hand, her left hand particularly, almost looks like she's cold. It's blue purple kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really cold.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, this arm gets really almost to the, as you said, almost to the blue violet side.
Right.
And again, that goes back to what I keep telling you guys is that when you starting to paint flesh tones, there's all kinds of color in skin. Okay. So everything is kind of cooler and blue and violet and kind of this, kind of pinky type violet. As it moves up here, it gets a little bit warmer in temperature. And then as it moves into the face, it's really quite warm. And when you also, because everything's warmed up here, the shadows, like under her neck and like down the side of her face, if you really begin to look at those,
Green in it.
yeah, they tend to be kind of greenish, in direction. Which
I like the color that's on the left.
the color that's on the left, you mean over here?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the background color. Right.
Mm.
Yeah, it's
Matter of fact, on the hands, I thought he was trying to pick up the blue that's on the right.
uh-huh. Yeah. Well, but if you look in here, all right, you've got this kind of darker blue gray, but notice how none of this is solid.
Mm-hmm.
See, you've actually got this kind of gold sort of undertone coming through in places, you know, with that blue to, again, you know, sort of balance out the temperature. And so there's really, you know, a lot of color back here in the background, you know, and also a lot of different color here in the face itself.
Carol, could we say that the light is coming, most of the light is directed on her face?
Yeah, it
This
seems
portion than the other?
Yeah, it seems to be coming in from, you know, high and from the left, you know, and really kind of striking, yeah, this part of her head and her chest area right in there.
Mm-hmm.
And all the shadows are falling, you know, in the direction, you know, of the left. You know, this chair, for example, you know, most of it is dark, you know, because the light was probably, you know, behind the edge of the chair, you know, coming in this way. So
Now, our artists know that that's arms are kind of gray or bluish because of the shadows. But I think maybe in real life, you know, person probably wouldn't want their picture to have all this gray and blue in their skin like that. It doesn't, you know, it's kind of like belongs to a different body, but we know it belongs to the same body. It's just in shadow.
well,
A
yeah,
model
but
wouldn't want that.
yeah, but also if you begin to look at people, okay, you know, the skin colors, you know, like in their arms and hands and legs is generally very different than the skin tones in their face. You know, take, I'll just use myself as an example, right? If you look at my face, you know, I have much more generally warmer colors in my face. And then as it moves down my body into my legs and particularly like my hands and things, those do get cool because I have a lot of vascularity. I've got a lot of veins close to the top of my skin. So you begin to get those sort of kind of bluish, greenish sort of, you know, colorations, you know, coming in the skin in those areas. So some of it is certainly the light, you know, but some of it is actually just anatomy and how the fact that, you know, you don't generally see a lot of vascularity in your face. You hope not, at least, you know. You know, and then as it moves down your body, you know, in your arms and your legs, then those arteries and, well, mainly it's blood vessels, you know, are close to the surface of the skin. So you actually see it and that affects the color of the skin or the perception of the color of the skin.
So then we all should get our portraits done. We're going to show a lot of skin before we get 30, 35. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably, yeah. If you're thinking in those terms, yeah. Yeah. You can get away with the bikini halter top. Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking much past 50 or 60. You know, you might want to reconsider that. You know, it depends. You know, I mean, they say that now 50 is like the new 30. So, you know,
Okay. All right.
yeah, and if you look around, you know, at a lot of women these days, you know, a lot of women are pretty, you know, I mean, staying, you know, really, really attractive, you know, up into their 70s and 80s even, you know, so yeah, it's a different world. I mean, if you think back, you know, your mother, my mother, you know, or my grandmother, you know, when I was born, right, my grandmother was probably like just like in her, well, she probably wasn't even 30 yet, right?
Wow.
When I was, yeah. And so, you know, and as when I was growing up, I always remember her as an old woman,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But, you know, people of her generation, you know, by the time that they were 40, they did look old.
Mm-hmm.
you know?
And yeah, that's one reason why when I painted my mother, I painted a younger version of her, because the children today only seen an older person. They
Right.
didn't see her when she was in the prime of life. So
Uh-huh.
that's why it was important to show them what she used to look like.
Okay. Yeah, and that's, you know, that's a good thought, you know. You know, I think this gets in a whole totally different direction, but yeah, I think women in particular would rather you paint them 10 years younger.
Yes.
Men, on the other hand, don't care so much, you know. In fact, I think a lot of men, as they begin to age, you know, their faces and things get a lot more character. You know, and they're much more interesting to look at than when they were like a young man.
Mhm.
Like this fellow, for example. Okay.
Exactly.
Yes. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, you know, what a striking face, you know, and you know, very intense look to him. And I'm trying to remember who he is. He's one of, like, I think he's a cardinal or somebody in.
Bishop Paul Moore.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Bishop Paul Moore.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's right there in the title. Read it.
Mhm.
Yeah. But Bert talked about doing this portrait quite a bit, you know, at some of the Portrait Society meetings and things. And it's amazing, you know, how long it took him to paint, you know, finally come down to a composition and a final painting on this. This was not quick. I mean, I think he worked on this at least a year, maybe a year and a half. And for him, that's like incredibly long, because he generally does portraits, you know, very, very fast. But yeah, he put a lot of thought and care. And, you know, honestly, in looking at it, you know, and very seldom does he paint like the background and everything else in his paintings. But, you know, I really think that this is probably one of his very strongest paintings that he's done, you know, in his career. Just really beautifully handled. You know, the gesture of the hand and, you know, the expression on the face, the lighting, you know, everything's worked out, you know, really, really meticulously and well. Here's
What I love is how he came up with the background, because he could have been any kind of background, and that background just softens him as a bishop. He said he's a person of the world. They could have put a cathedral behind him, but they put the downtown behind him.
Right.
So much, put it right in the middle of the street.
Yeah, out there with the people.
People, yes.
You know, and that was kind of this guy's personality. You know, he really was, you know, quite a figure in New York, and that's saying a lot, because New York's got a lot of, you know, prominent figures. You know, this portrait, okay, a guy by the name of Bruce Babbitt, and I'm trying to remember what Babbitt does. I think he's like a big CEO or some of these companies, you know, corporate type guy. But you look at this guy and you get a sense of who he is, you know, his personality. And again, you know, he's putting him in a context, you know, he's out there somewhere out west. I would say that's definitely a more Western landscape. But, you know, he's got this very intent look. And look at in particular, look at the light and shadow on the face. And how, if you really get right down to it, you know, Bert really painted about half of a portrait here. Because the only thing that he gave you was really this side of the face, where he really rendered the form. And all of this is just a suggestion, right? You know, there's very little there, you know, and yet it's just enough, you know, to complete, you know, that other side of the face. This is a monochromatic. This is a study that he did for a painting that I think I've got in the mix here. You know, they had multiple figures. And so you've got this woman, and, you know, she's carrying this large flag. She's a protester. And you know, just a really strong, you know, beautiful gesture, and how, you know, the upper part of the body really becomes the focal point, you know, in this, and really nicely controlled values, you know, across here. Again, this is a more formal type portrait. Now, can anybody see the red in that dress?
By the belt line.
Wow, yes, just a
Yeah.
little bit.
Little.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
there's-
Yeah.
yeah. You know, at first when you begin to look at it, you think, wow, that's a black dress, but it's not. You know, it's this very, very deep, deep, deep red, and yeah, and it's, you know, this being more red and warm against the green, it's a direct complement. Yeah. And so, you know, again, that gives that painting a lot more impact. Now, if he would have painted that black, it would not have had,
Dead.
huh?
It look dead. This looks alive black.
Right. Yeah.
Dark
Yeah.
red.
I see
Now-
some red dots, but the dress look black.
Yeah. It's almost a number 10 value, but
Mhm.
it's a number 10 value red. And look at the difference between, say, the hair and the dress,
Oh, okay.
you
Okay.
know, and how much warmer, you know,
Yeah.
the dress feels, you know, versus the hair up in there. And, you know, it's those little subtle things,
Mhm.
you know, that, you know, artists play with, you know, that at first, you know, maybe you don't really, you know, focus on, but
Well, when people see pearls, they look white, but the way
Huh?
he's got the pearls painted, they pick up their normalcy of pearl coloring.
well, because they're such a reflective object, you know,
Right.
they reflect everything around them, you know, from her flesh tone to the dress, to the background. And so you're going to have all of those different colors.
Most people, when they paint them, to me, they paint them white.
Right. Yeah. Well, and see, that's because they're not painting the pearls, they're painting an idea that there is a pearl necklace there. And when you really start looking at pearls, you know, pearls are anything but white. So, yeah, we've talked about things like that before. Again, you know, look at the flesh tones, you know, how the arms get a little bit darker and a little bit cooler, right? And then as you move to the face, again, you know, more warm undertones in the skin, things up there. And again, you know, it helps contrast the flesh tones of the face, you know, with that cool background that he's got back there. Okay. Very precocious looking little girl, you know. You can almost, you know, you can almost see how mischievous she is, you know, just in, you know, her expression. And well, here, let me go back to that. And again, you know, one of the things that Bert really emphasizes is, you know, that strength of the drawing. You know, for him, more than color and everything else, you know, it's really all about the drawing.
But see, he actually painted, he actually drew the arms twice.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, he probably started this off, you know, in a process that we call, you know, a drawing process we call, you know, creating an envelope.
Mm-hmm.
See, you know, he was really kind of thinking, you know, his very first thought when he looked at this was, what's the big overall shape, you know, that I'm going to put on the page, and where am I going to place it? You know, how's it going to sit on this piece of paper? And so, you know, he just loosely kind of, you know, put that angle in there, you know, an angle, you know, up the back, you know, here from the shoulder up, you know, probably just a loose shape for the head. And you probably lost, you know, in these in these areas that become more finished, you know, you've probably lost a lot of the initial drawing like that.
I thought he was trying to show movement or something.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I don't know about the movement part, but certainly the gesture of her,
Mhm.
And again, that's just a slightly different approach, to creating a drawing. So what you find is you find a big sort of shape, and then you know that everything that all your subject is within that shape, and that's called an envelope.
I think most artists would have erased the, uh, the line they didn't consider using, like
Mm-hmm.
the lower part, instead of leaving where it was thinking in there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can see here, like in this particular case, he moved the hand.
Yes.
At one point, the hand was coming down here like this, and he decided to lengthen the arm, and maybe, he had her actually like shift her pose or something, to accommodate, that shape a little bit better. So, we have this guy, okay. Now, for a very formal sort of portrait, when you look at this guy, the general impression I get is, this guy's kind of an approachable guy. He's somebody who might be really interesting to sit down and talk with, right? And his, rather than a very stiff and very formal kind of presentation, he looks very relaxed. He looks like he's just kind of hanging out. Maybe you ran into him, at a restaurant or something, and he's just kind of leaning against the chair and kind of, shooting the breeze with you, catching up. So, got a really nice, just really lovely feel, in capturing who he was, or is, I should say.
Like that one.
Yeah. All right. So this is a portrait of a judge, Judge Carole King. All right. And I have no idea where Judge Carole King comes from, but again, it sort of, rather than doing this very kind of stiff, very formal, look to her, it's again, he kind of makes her approachable, like, again, this is somebody, even though she's a judge, somebody you could sit down and have a conversation with, really talk to, so she doesn't have this very authoritarian sort of stance, it's more casual, it's a little more fluid.
Is this the same artist, Bert Silverman?
Yes, these are all going to be Bert Silverman up until we switch over and start looking at some arts and crafts paintings.
I'm just double checking.
Okay.
And
Hey, Charles,
Yes.
I was wondering what his thinking would be on backgrounds, why some just have the modeled effect and some have an actual detail that suggests either their occupation or involvement.
Yeah, well, a lot of that probably has to do with the commission, and what, whoever's commissioning the piece
Right, right.
is asking for. When, the expression, it will cost an arm and a leg.
Right.
Yeah. Do you have any idea where that expression came from?
Nope.
Okay.
The arts.
Yes.
When the painter did the arms and the legs, that was more expensive.
That's right. That's right. At one point in this time, and this actually goes all the way back to colonial times, there were what they call itinerant artists who would travel around the country, and the way that they would survive is they would come to a small town and they would do portraits of people. And so, they would convince a couple of people to get a portrait. And the way they charged them, as Bob suggested, was when, the more you added in, the more arms, hands, legs, things like that, the more expensive the painting was, right? So if you had a painting that showed not only their face, but most of their body, their arms and their legs, you know, that was a much more expensive painting than something that was just a head and shoulders, right? And so, so when you price portraiture, you know, you price it by, you know, not really, you don't really charge per arm or per leg necessarily, but it's really about how complicated is the painting, all right? And so, you know, if this is a fairly straightforward, simple painting, and you know you're doing 3/4 of the figure, you know that's going to be more expensive than just doing the head and shoulders, right? But then if you put her in a context of a room or a background, some specific place or an environment, then again, that's far more expensive than just doing her standing in front of, you know, kind of a, you know, a color field or, you know, a suggested background, right?
Charles,
Yes.
before you move on, to me now, and it may just be me, but when the women put their hands on the hip, it loses the relaxed feeling. It's more like a pose. It's not like they're just standing there relaxed. You took a picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's the judge.
Right.
She's telling you she has authority.
Uh-huh. Yes. Yeah.
It's like when the mother put the hand on the hip.
Uh-huh.
I mean what I say.
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah. But still, you know, she doesn't come off as like really heavy authoritarian, you know, because again, it's to me, you know, the pose looks a little more informal, a little more relaxed. And the fact that it's not real symmetrical because you've got this nice, you know, big shape, you know, coming outside here, and where this side of the body is more straight, you know, is kind of a nice contrast.
Mhm.
Anybody else got anything to say about the judge before we go away? All right. You know, kind of the same thing with this guy. You know, now he looks a little more to me, you know, he's a little more kind of, you know, business, you know, kind of a little more serious than say either the judge or, you know, the guy, you know, that he did before him. You know, he looks more like a businessman. Like, you know, he's going to negotiate with you. You know? So now he may be an attorney or something like that. Let's see, Joe. Yeah.
To be an insurance salesman with your papers.
Yeah. Yeah. Could be a sales guy, you know, could be, yeah. You know, could be a CEO, you know. But yeah, just the look of him is more like, yeah, I mean business, you know, instead of, you know, very casual. Like this guy. All right. You know, see a much more informal kind of pose. And you still get the sense of, okay, you know, yeah, I'm serious, you know, I'm not this really relaxed, easygoing guy. But, you know, you've kind of got me in my environment. You know, you know, he seems like one of these people who is, you know, sort of, I guess you would say, focused, you know, in his life.
I love the color of that chair. I love what he did with that chair.
Yeah, I think I've seen that chair before,
That's
you know, or that fabric, you know,
beautiful.
somewhere. You know, yeah, this guy. Get a little pixelated as you get it. Okay, let's try it about right there. Again, you know, just, you know, got a little bit of the environment, you know, around him, and, you know, kind of a hint about, you know, maybe what he does. Like, for example, this architectural rendering up here. You kind of look at him and go, okay, well, you know, maybe he's an architect or something like that, you know, some kind of designer, or, you know, or maybe that's a, you know, company headquarters or something like that. So again, you know, he gives you elements to sort of, you know, lead into the story, you know, about who these people are oftentimes, you know. Now, see, that's just a head and the shoulders, right? So
She didn't pay a arm and a leg.
she did not pay an arm and a leg, right?
Don't skip the little girl.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the little girl coming up next here.
Oh, how sweet.
Yeah,
Very
very,
sweet.
yeah, kind of sweet, but still kind of intense, you know, because she's kind of leaned forward, you know, the hands are folded, you know, and it's you can almost feel it's like, you know, can I go now? Yeah,
I want to say, hurry up and get through is what it looks
Right.
like.
right. Yeah, yeah. Mom, you know, mom put me in this dress. You know, can I just get up and go play, please? You can almost feel that in her when you look at her. So, you know, they always tell you as a portrait artist, you know, you never want to work with children, you never want to work with animals, right? You know, they're always the most difficult. You know, this lady, yeah. Again, you know, you look at her, and you know, it's kind of like the portrait of the business guy. You know, she looks kind of serious. You know, she's got a far more sort of intense personality to her, you know, than some of the people that he painted. And so,
But this is Bob, but she almost the painting almost looks fake. You know, I mean, it doesn't have the life to me that's a lot of the others. Her face just seems, I don't know, maybe too peaches and cream, maybe, or something. I don't know, but it just looks more fake than a lot of all the rest of the other ones.
yeah.
But to me, it looks like a lot stuffed into one room. It looks like a bed, a piano, and a table with the coffee in it. It looks like it's almost squished in a small area.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I'm kind of reading this as maybe the back of the house or something. You know.
That's a
Like-
chair. That's a chair she sit on the side of, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, this could be the back of the chair that she's sitting
The
in.
sofa, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, the sofa, something, yeah.
Mhm.
Charles, did he paint mostly formal portraits, or because the very first one you showed was a very relaxed, casual portrait of the young lady with the jean sweater on, a jacket?
Right.
Because it looks like most of the work that he's done is very formal, very stiff.
Well, yeah, I would call Bert's work anything but really kind of stiff. Now,
Well,
now
that lady
he
looks
does,
stiff to me.
yeah, he does. Yeah, well, and again, I think he's very good at capturing people's personalities, you know.
Mm.
And, you know, I mean, some people are, you know, far more formal and serious, where other people are more approachable and kind of casual. And I think he conveys that pretty well in just about all of his paintings. But if you look at a large body of his work, you know, he's done a lot of portraits. And we're going to, you know, he's got some more pieces coming up here. And I think you'll get the idea that he's pretty versatile. But he really, you know, the thing that he and I kind of have in common is that really our very, very favorite thing to work with are people. You know, getting to know them, you know, getting to know a little bit about them, trying to get some of who they are, you know, on that canvas, so that, you know, when you look at it, you're not just looking at a painting, you kind of get this sense of, you know, they're there, they're present, you know, in the room with you. You know, I would call that a rather casual painting.
Yes, he's casual now.
Yep, that's a very casual painting. Now-
It looks like something you would paint.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm kind of guessing, you know, this seems to be, it's hard to say, you know. It's a little bit looser, a little more kind of gestural painting for him. And I don't really know how big this is. You know, it may have just been a kind of a small study. Well, I've never quite figured out why he painted this, you know. But he, you know, he did a series of landscapes and things. But yeah, this to me, yeah, you know, I mean, I would look at that and go, yeah, do I really want to paint something like that? It's like, no, it's not that interesting to me.
Well, maybe something happened at that
It's
curve.
a break from the unusual.
Yeah, yeah, maybe it did. Yeah, I
Maybe
mean,
something happened at that
yeah,
curve.
From
they're
somebody
kinda-
having,
Mhm.
talking back to you, he got tired. This one doesn't talk back to you.
yeah, but you know, yeah, it's a very very different painting from
Symbolic,
a lot of what he does.
probably symbolic of something.
Okay. Now I've seen this painting before, and it's really a beautiful painting. Unfortunately, I've got a very small picture of it. But if you look at it, you know, there's a story there. Okay, it's like look at this woman, and then she's sitting in front of a big window of like one of the downtown stores or whatever, and you know they've got this underwear, and you know they've got all of these women with these, you know, more or less, you know, ideal perfect bodies, and this woman, you know, okay. but yeah, it's kind of this contrast.
Yes.
So then there's this guy. I wish I had bigger images on these, but you know, he's there with his guitar, you know, in the subway, you know, playing away. He's got his cup, you know, for people to pitch in, and then look at the people, you know, that he included in the background, you know, sitting there waiting for the train. So, you know, again, it kind of gives you this sense of, you know, life, you know, that, yeah, there's something really kind of going on. Let's see, we've already looked at her. Yeah, study back, yeah, Back to the Future. Oh yeah. Now this is Bert's wife, I think.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Very relaxed, very casual.
Yeah, now that's relaxed to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, it's just like he caught her in this moment, you know, and it's like, and he really does have a sense of her, you know, who she is. You know, I've met her before on a couple of occasions, and she, you know, lovely lady. Yeah. Let's see. Again, you know, very very precocious looking little boy.
That's beautiful.
Looks like a school picture.
Great job on the hair.
Yeah, but you know, if you look at the expression, and you know, it's like he's almost ready to talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that hair is great.
Now, this is a figurative study that Bert did, and he teaches at the Art Students League, and so you know, he'll do a lot of figurative paintings as well. You know, he'll have models come in, set them up, you know, and then students will paint. And again, you know, this is probably something that's really much quicker, you know, you would say more gestural. Okay. And so these are some examples, you know, of some of the, you know, figurative studies he'd set up for his students. So, and this is I'm kind of thinking this is a watercolor, but it could be oil. Could be, you know, he has a way of using oil sometimes that looks a lot like watercolor. Yeah, where it's kind of wet and drippy and runny.
Look how white the legs are. That really looks like a ghostly color.
Yeah, she's a very fair-skinned woman. You know, I mean, red hair.
Red hair, right.
Yeah. So, but if you really look closely,
Yeah, I see the color in it, but it just almost, yeah, compared to the rest of them, she looks like almost like a ghost there. The rest of the upper part of the body has more color to it.
yeah, and on somebody who's very fair, it would.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, she's probably gotten a lot more sun exposed, you know, to her like face and chest areas, you know, than she did, you know, on her legs. So. Again, you know, another kind of quick figure study. So, And we have this young guy. He looks like he's ready to go out there and kind of take on the world. So
I'm just noticing all the folds in the sleeve there.
yeah,
Very nice.
yeah. Notice that they don't, they're not repetitive, right? But he uses these folds, see, to kind of tell you how round his arm is, so
Mhm.
moving into the body, and
Yeah.
then the coat being bunched up,
Mhm.
he again kind of moves you across, right? And then the
Yes.
folds in the shirt, in around the abdomen of the belly, right?
Great job.
So
But you still see the drawing lines there as well, right?
yeah, somewhat. Yeah, right at the edges. Yeah, like right along the
Right.
sleeve here and stuff. Yeah. And then that piece right there, this is a study. Again, probably a model that he had set up at his studio for his students to paint. But really, really kind of nice expression and movement in the piece. Now, when I'm looking at this, and I would say the same thing to any of you, when I'm looking at this, the fact that where her head is positioned and it's so right in the center of the canvas, right? And then look at the direction she's looking. She's really kind of looking over here to the left. And you look at the space, between here and the space between here. They're pretty close. But the fact is, this is a little bit smaller. And the fact that it is smaller than over here on the right gives you almost like a sense of tension, in the painting. It's like it's uncomfortable, right? Anybody notice that?
Now that you mention it.
Yeah, and that's,
The width of the section on the right leads you back into it.
over here.
Yeah, that leads
Yeah,
you
you
right
kind of come
into it.
around the hat, down
Yeah.
the shoulder, yeah, and back around.
Yeah.
But
I don't
to me-
notice. I notice that they're almost equal on the left and the right up around the eyes.
Yeah.
But I think the way he's got her positioned with her leaning back,
Mhm.
I like the way it kind of leads around. It helps you go around the face. to
Okay.
me.
So do me a favor, all right? If you guys have a piece of paper or something around, I want you to take it and I want you to hold the paper up and I want you to cut off the right side of the painting, back to, somewhere either, just before the hat or, maybe, just a little over front.
On the left or the right side?
You're covering up the right side. Of the
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And look how that changes the composition.
Yes.
See,
It's a little bit like Julia Roberts.
it does a little bit. Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
like it better with that part out completely and just cut it off.
Right. You could. Yeah. You could recrop that painting
Right.
and it would really improve the composition of it a lot.
But I like the look of the lady better too. It changes your perception of it, what she's,
Right. Just taking that little bit off on the right, all of a sudden, makes it a much more informal, relaxed painting. Somehow, the fact that it's, that she's not really shifted more to the right, giving you more space on that left kind of for her to kind of look into, creates that sort of sense of tension in there. Okay.
right.
But also what's happening is that her boob that is kind of shifted downward.
Yeah.
On the right side over there.
Yeah.
And so that gives that whole thing of relaxed kind of view of what's going on.
Yeah. You can interpret that a lot of different ways.
Yeah, because the line. Mhm. I do.
But yeah, just again, it's kind of a compositional thing. You just shave off a little bit on the right, and to me, that sort of improves the painting.
Yeah,
by doing it.
good.
But
I think that the right breast should have been raised up a little higher too.
the right breast,
Well,
her right, or
Yes.
the one that's on the right?
right. Not that one, her
The
right,
ones are showing.
right there. That should be raised up a
Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
If the
That's
shoulder
right.
back further, it would raise the breast up, I think.
Yes, that's what I was saying, yes.
Well, okay.
But it gives that relaxed view.
Because you
All right,
usually-
Don't you think that the right shoulder being way over and darker sort of pushes it over to the right, even though the head is so centered? To me, having that heavy shoulder actually moves the whole thing to the right. Doesn't seem so dead on center to me.
Yeah, it looks like
Um,
the shoulder on her right is higher. If you draw a line between what you think is a shoulder of between the two shoulders, it would raise the line. The position of the breast should be up a little bit.
well, if I measure from, say, the height of the head, you come down one, right under the chin, okay, then that, the point of the breast where the nipple is really falls right in line for where it should be, one head down. Okay, which is generally, and again, it's a generalization, generally where you put the breast line, which is,
Well, the thing is, that the position of her body,
Mhm.
I mean, just logically, the way she's positioned, her, well, let's see how to put it. Her left breast should be lower because of the positioning of the shoulders, which would, and the right shoulder is up more, so the breast should rise up a little bit. Anyway, that's what I see.
yeah, it could be. Yeah, the breast on the right side seems to be sitting a little high.
All right.
Anyway, all right. So, before we,
Yeah. No.
analyze her to death.
Yeah.
All right.
So
So
we need to crop the bottom off.
yeah, that's another solution. Just crop the bottom off. Yeah, while we're cropping it. So anybody got anything to comment about Bert's paintings or anything like that?
I do.
Okay.
Of course.
I don't know. Every time it seems to me that we take a beautiful picture and we overanalyze it. You
Uh-huh.
take it and chop it up instead of appreciating the beauty that it is. Her right breast is too high. Her left breast is pointing west.
I agree with you.
I knew you would, John. I said, John is going to agree with me.
Okay.
I mean, it's just a beautiful, his work is beautiful, period.
I do not
I
disagree.
think, for me,
Mhm.
a lot of it is lost when we overanalyze it. Like the little kids. To me, most little kids are they're on that edge of good and bad, but that's a little kid.
Right.
I mean, those things go without saying. It seems like we're picking it apart. And it's just like, I was like, stop.
And
Let's just
people do that with movies too. They just get so deep and look for all. I mean, just enjoy the surface.
That's it. Just
But at the same time, if you're in a learning process,
Right.
you may need to know that this shadows that, this is a little bit off. If you learn those nuances, so that when you're painting, you can say, okay, my painting looks good, but I need to shape it just a little bit more so it'll be believable.
Yeah, I definitely understand and agree with that. But what happens for me, and again, this is just for me, you take away the pure joy of putting paint on canvas or paint on any surface. It's an expression of free. You're free. And if we take it and overanalyze it, it takes away the beauty and the joy. I mean, it's so relaxing to paint or to draw. You know, I don't know. I just thank you, John.
Okay, we're in sync.
Okay. So here's my I guess here's how I'm going to respond to that. Okay. And you know, Bernice touched on a really good point, which is the environment that we're in. All right. What we're doing is we're talking about these paintings, and we're trying to learn from them. All right. So we're using, you know, this time as a way to learn. All right. Now, believe me, you know, I have an enormous amount of respect for Bert, you know, so as a person, but also as an artist. And, you know, the other thing I want you to think about is there's never been a piece of artwork that's ever been created by a human being that is perfect.
That's right. Perfect.
Okay.
Right.
So, you know, that being said, that goes for me. That goes for all of us. All right. There's always things that we could do better. All right. Any painting. I don't care who it is. You know, Leonardo da Vinci, you know, could have improved the Mona Lisa, even though it's a masterpiece. Right. And any masterpiece that you look at, you can still make them better. And again, because we're in sort of this environment of trying to learn, right? If this were just an art appreciation class, then I'd say, okay, let's all look at the beautiful paintings, right? And we wouldn't really get into analyzing composition and values, things like that. But because it is a learning process, then what we're doing is we're looking at them through a slightly different lens, right? And we're trying to analyze them so that as you're painting, you know, if you're just beginning to paint things, you know, maybe some of that will stick, you know, in the back of your mind. It's like, okay, so, all right, you know, when I paint this, I don't want to put it right in the middle. All right, I want to do something more interesting with it, you know, and get a more dynamic composition, you know, composed before I get too far into this painting. And so you see, that's where it becomes a valuable tool to do this, okay?
It also makes you feel good that even a very wonderful painter can make a mistake too. They don't know when to stop.
Sure, sure, yeah. And see, that's, you know, that's another aspect of it. It's like, okay, as good as these people are, again, not everything that they do is perfect, right? And just like everything that you do will not be perfect, and everything I do.
Nothing.
Yeah, but the fact is, you see, some people will let that stop them, you know, from doing anything. And, you know, one of the things I'm pushing everybody here to do is don't worry about it. Do lots of work. All right. The more work you do, the better chance you have of producing that masterpiece. All right. And you probably, if you did produce that masterpiece, you probably wouldn't even know it when you did it.
Right.
No.
Girls, what is Bert's last name?
Silverman. S-I-L-V-E-R-M-A-N. Bert Silverman. Okay. All right. Well, I hate to tell you this, but you know, the timer went off, and we didn't get to the arts and crafts paintings, but I'm going to go through the list this afternoon of the work that you sent me. And if we have some time to go back and look at some of these arts and crafts paintings, we will. If not, oh well, we'll save it for another day. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So we will be back here at 2 o'clock. Okay?
All right.
Have a good lunch,
It was
everyone.
great. I enjoyed it.
All right.
Thank you.
It was wonderful.
Yeah. It
Thank you.
was good seeing all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.